What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. This week is super fun. I've been looking forward to this for a long time because Tim and I have had this book. I don't know how. I mean, like a couple months now, man, that we've been
At
waiting to
least
do
I
this.
think like 3 months.
Yeah. So
maybe
Tim,
maybe maybe 3 months.
Frank Brothers Guitars, dude. Thank you so much for coming out and doing this, and under the weather as well, weathering the storm inside your body.
That's my excuse. If I just slip of the tongue or if I come off like an idiot, then I can just say I'm sick.
There you go.
Blame my
Well,
toddler.
dude, it happens. Man, I
Oh
only have
yeah,
one kid, and there was a period of time where I feel like my wife and I were just sick for years.
yeah.
And then
It's
all of a
gonna be
sudden
a
it just
long
stopped.
winter. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But then they stop loving you and they move on. They move out of the house.
Well, my kid's 12 and she's still firmly in the
Oh, that's
mommy
nice.
daddy at
Yeah,
home, but outside we're mom and dad. Like if I say
yeah.
mommy and she's like,
Cool.
"Who?"
Yeah, the mother.
So,
That's
yeah, right?
funny.
Tim, dude, I have so much. I have like a whole page of questions for you. I know we won't get to them
Awesome.
all, but
Cool.
I have to ask you, and you've seen this show, but I have to ask you what your earliest musical memory is, and from there I want to take it through the arc of what you're doing now for a living. But tell me about your earliest musical memory.
Wow. We grew up with music in the house, and my grandfather, this guy, Oop, was a classical violinist. He played for the NBC Symphony Orchestra under this guy named Toscanini, this famous conductor who was kind of like, uh, a wily kind of gregarious dude, and so I grew up with my grandfather playing Yankee Doodle on the violin, and then he would just like kind of go nuts after that. As soon as you got him playing violin, like you could not stop him. You'd have to pry it out of his hands. And I was actually just looking back through some home videos that my mom digitized, and he's always got a violin in his hand since we were little kids. That was
Oh
probably
man.
my earliest musical memory, and so yeah, that definitely had a big impact, and was always interesting to like see him playing. Like he had a music room and there was sheet music like framed on the walls and just sheet music kind of everywhere. And I just remember looking at it and it was just like a a, a white page but almost completely covered in black. It's like very like complicated looking music. When I looked at it, I was like, this just looks like alien script. And so yeah, that always fascinated me, that someone could read music as a language and just be so into it and passionate about it and just want to play all the time. But that was
Hmm.
really interesting.
Did you pick up the violin at all as a young kid?
I didn't. My brother did, but then he moved on. He's an older brother, and then he got into electric guitar, and then I was like, okay, skip right past violin, straight to electric guitar.
How old were you
So
guys when you started playing?
I got my first guitar when I was 7 or 8. My
Oh
first electric.
wow.
It was a 3/4 scale Samick Stratocaster, no amp, just a Strat, just playing nothing on that to nobody. Nobody could hear it.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. What did your brother play? Like, what was the first guitar that was in the house that made you be like, "Oh."
My dad had an acoustic, um, so yeah, that was around. And then my older brother got a. Actually, we still have the guitar here. We keep telling him we're gonna fix it, but it's a junker Eldegus, red Eldegus, also a Strat, but full size. And so yeah, that was in the house. Um, but there was an acoustic. My dad used to play, so
Oh, okay. So music was a big part of your life growing up.
yeah, for sure. And my dad was a engineer, so he was a recording engineer. By the time I came along, he had moved into film and like audio, or film and
Oh,
television. Yeah, doing like he worked at this place called Masters Workshop, and they did the audio for I think IMAX films.
oh
So like
wow.
Lions of the Serengeti, or yeah, African Serengeti and Fires of Kuwait and all these big IMAX movies. They did some part of the audio for it. I don't know the whole story, but we would go into this place, Master's Workshop, where my dad worked, and he was like the manager at that point, or did something in the business. I don't know. My dad passed away when I was like 7 years old, so I don't have like the full story. But we used to go when we were kids, and they had like a Foley studio, and they had like a bunch of just blacked out rooms with the big screens and the full like studio setup. And there would just be these guys sitting there for like 10 hours in the dark, moving sliders, watching the same clip over and over and over again, just kind of like getting it perfect. So I remember that being like, that's a pretty strong memory.
Man,
And they
dude.
also had they had a soda machine that my dad had the key to. And that was pretty cool.
That makes sense. That was a memory that stuck. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Man. So Tim, that is really cool. This is why I always ask that question, because I feel like from hearing that, I feel like you had no other choice but your path to lead into the music industry, in some way, shape, or form.
For sure. Definitely with my grandfather and my dad, he was an engineer like in music to start at this place called Nimbus 9 in Toronto. They did like Alice Cooper and the Guess Who and bunch of people. Like this is where my this is for Night Moves.
Bob Seger.
So yeah, Bob Seger. Nice. They recorded that in Toronto.
Yeah.
They recorded the rest of the album at Muscle Shoals, and they needed one more song, and they happened to be in Toronto, so they booked a last-minute gig or last-minute studio time at Nimbus 9, where my dad worked. Came in, they cut Night Moves, and it happened to be like the hit of the record.
Woo! Yeah, that song is a vibe, man.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
Yeah, I love that song.
So,
anytime I'm coming home from a gig late, I put that song on a lot.
For sure.
Kind of, it's like ginger from eating sushi. It just cleans the palate a little bit from my ears. There's something about it, man. Yeah. I love the way it was recorded.
It's a great sounding song, and it was all Toronto musicians from what I heard. And they tell me my dad's bass was on the record. He has a P bass that we still have. That's who knows? That's lost to history. But if that's true or not, no, you know what it is. My dad had this acoustic guitar. It was a Martin. It was a slow shoulder Martin Dreadnought with the 12th fret and the headstock. And he had this acoustic guitar. I sold it by the time I think when I was born. He sold. My mom asked him to sell it, and that's the guitar on at the opening for Night Moves. Is his guitar, who according to my uncle Paul Simon picked out because they're from New York, and my uncle did some video work for Paul Simon and ran him at a guitar shop. And my dad was shopping for this guitar, and Paul Simon played that one and was like, "You should buy this guitar." Anyways, all of this is just like hearsay from my uncle. So.
It doesn't even matter.
So anyways, it's all kind of fun stories and all that. But basically, like with my grandfather and my dad and stuff, like I kind of got the sense like you could do music as in some way for a living. So it never like scared me to try and go into music as a career in some form or another. Definitely took a bit of a zag with guitar making, but sort of adjacent. Enough.
Yeah. You know what's crazy, man? This is hitting home so hard for me today because I saw this clip. I don't know, and let me know if you've seen this, but I saw this clip of Jim Carrey talking about his dad because I just lost my dad in September. He was 83. Yeah. But
sorry to hear that.
Thanks, man. But Jim Carrey was talking about how his dad was, this really funny guy and this amazing saxophonist.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and like how at some point he was like, my dad wanted to move to the States to like, kind of put our family in a better spot. So he became an accountant. And he's like, and he left his dreams of playing music to do that. But at the age of 51, he lost his job. Like they fired him or whatever, or like laid him off. And he was like, it just made me think, Jim Carrey, about, you can fail at doing something you don't want to do. So why not fail doing something that you love doing? Because it's almost like failing at doing something you don't want to do is almost harder.
Yeah,
you gave up on something else. You know what I mean? But it's so
That's a great
interesting.
insight.
Yeah, dude, like that hit home. So that all kind of weaved together. So that was awesome. Um,
Cool.
so tell me a little bit about like growing up around all this stuff and you and your brother, like what were you guys listening to? Like, was it just terrestrial radio? Like what kind of music were you guys digging?
Yeah, I mean, some radio. So we lost my dad when I was 7, and so was raised by my mom, and but she was also really into music, and she had a huge CD collection at the time. It was CDs back then, and cassettes. I guess it started as cassettes. Anyways, she was really into like Motown and folk music, so we grew up listening to like Aretha and Martha and the Vandellas and Ray Charles and then also like Neil Young and Paul and Simon and Garfunkel and um, yeah, lots of folk music. And then as my brothers and I got a little older, we got into like Zeppelin and AC/DC, and then someone, I don't know, I think my brother went into a record store and saw um, Full Dead album with a funky cover and was like, "Oh, I'll buy this," and then listened to it and was like, "This sucks," and then put it away for like a couple of years, and then came back to it, and we all listened to it, and we were like, "Oh, this is sick." So then we started listening to the Grateful Dead, and and then yeah, then nowadays you can just listen to everything and anything always with Spotify and stuff. So now I've definitely expanded, but went into like did like our jazz phase and got into really into like the classic jazz stuff, and then into fusion and like Schofield and all that stuff. And so we went and
Uh,
saw like Return to Forever and Dave Brubeck, and yeah, I saw Dave Brubeck like, when he was like 90 something. That was cool. So yeah, I've gone through like a bunch of different phases of what I listen to. Now that I've like yeah, got a screaming toddler, I go for the more mellow stuff.
yeah, dude, it's funny. We have like similar interests, same kind of stuff, man. I'm all over the place too. But so we have a mutual friend in Jake Brownstein from
Oh
Eggy.
yeah, love Eggy,
Um,
love Jake.
so are you kind of like, are you still in the jam band world? Like, or have you given up on that side of things?
For sure. Like, I mean, I love Eggy. I I definitely went through my Fish phase where I loved listening to Fish, and I went and saw them. I went and saw them once in Canada. Like, we just don't have the same opportunity
Yeah.
to see like those kind of bands. They tend not to like to cross the border for
I
for
wonder
whatever
why that
reason.
is.
I don't know. I don't know. I
It's
have
weird.
seen Fish in Toronto though, actually, so I can't say, but that was maybe later on in their post um, drug years. But yeah, definitely like still love that kind of scene. I've seen like Widespread Panic and um, yeah, Fish. I never got to see the Dead, but definitely gotten some jam band stuff. And I love like what he's doing, and I love that that is still like a world that's going on, and I hope to maybe get to go see some more of that stuff because there's so much cool music happening these days in
Yeah,
almost
man.
every genre, and there's just people making up new genres too. Like Eggy is like its own thing too, like, as well. Like it's not
Dude.
um, it's its own vibe. So
Yeah,
definitely
100%.
lives in
Because
that world. Like they could be kind of categorized in that vibe, but they're definitely doing their own thing too, which I really love.
yeah, man, that's why I love them. I feel like there's so many bands out there that are kind of like Fish derivative in a way or
Mhm.
Dead derivative. But I feel like Eggy's kind of carving their own path and like even though they're honoring and being faithful to that world, it's like they're doing their own specific thing.
Yeah.
Which I have a lot of respect for. I'm actually going to see them Sunday. They're coming to Baltimore.
Oh, sick, man! I gotta get them out to Toronto. They
Yeah,
were gonna
man.
play in Buffalo, and then Jake was gonna come to the, but just timing didn't work out. But I'd love to go see them. I'm super jealous. I might go ahead.
You'll see him. So let's since we're talking about not well reinventing the wheel, I want to talk to you a lot about your company because as a person that has seen them from afar for a couple years for now, I think the first thing that really struck me is in a world of guitar
Yeah.
players and guitar companies and boutique companies. There's so many people that are doing things that are like just, a slight off center of a Strat or of a Telly or something like that. And when, the first time I saw the arcade, I was like, now that is different. That is like not only super sexy in terms of the lines of the instrument, but like a headstock has got to be hard as hell to like come up with, because you're like, what am
Yeah.
I supposed to do to make this thing stick out? And it's one thing with your body shape, especially like the arcade, but to have like, I love the headstock on your instruments, and just like
Thank you.
how I feel the same way about my Josh Williams. I love his headstock, even though it's kind of like,
Yeah, I do too.
similar, but I feel like you guys are doing such a cool thing for the guitar community in terms of creating a new vibe for an instrument that we can all love and play and get into. So as an outsider seeing that for the past couple years, I want to talk to you about how that all came to be. Because at like
Mhm.
what point do you guys start building? Like how old are you when you start tinkering with stuff?
So well, thank you for the kind words. And
Mhm.
I'm stoked that you dig the guitars. And yeah, so Nick, my brother, he got me the Dan Erlewine book, the Stu Mac Dan Erlewine guitar repair guide in maybe high school. And so that's when I started to kind of tinker. I bought a Strat and it had like a bunk truss rod or whatever, and I took it in and the guy kind of brushed me off, and so I was like, oh, I should just like learn this myself. And so yeah, Nick got me this book for like, I don't know, my birthday or something. And then I just kind of dived into that. And then I got Nick into it. He started getting and fixing his bass. He like pulled the frets on it, filled them with epoxy, and made like a Jaco Pastorius kind of like vibe thing, fretless bass. And then I like put a Strat blaster in my Strat and swapped the pickups, did the whole thing, went nuts. And yeah, I guess I was in the high school, and then in university, um, when I don't even know how old you are anymore, 19, I guess, or 18, no, maybe 17. Anyways, um, yeah, we figured like let's build a guitar. I had access to a bandsaw and a drill press at this little. I was working at a canoe club, like teaching canoeing to
Okay,
kids, very
that's cool.
Canadian. And there was a shed in the back that had a bandsaw and a drill press, and so I was like, that's all you need to make a guitar, right? And so um, a family friend of ours owns a wood company who we're actually partnered with, and that's where we get a lot of our woods. And he gave us the wood for our first guitar, and we were like, oh, we're gonna make this thing from scratch. Make the neck, make the fretboard, make everything. Such a bad idea, by the way. And we did it with like nice wood too. So yeah, I guess that's when we first started to kind of like tinker with and make guitars. We had done repairs for a while before that, and so we made this guitar. We thought it was going to be the best guitar ever made. It turned out to be junk, but it was a big lesson learned. Learned a lot about you know the little dumb things you just never think about. Like how hard do you have to clamp something? How long do you leave? How much glue to spread? Um, you
Ah,
know,
yeah.
those little basics. Like I was never really a tinkerer or woodworker, and neither was my brother. So it kind of was it purely came from the passion for guitars, getting into this. Not coming, I didn't come from it as a woodworker. Um, so yeah, what was I going with this? I'm gonna blame the sickness
Yeah,
and
just like on
making.
how it evolved. Like when
Okay,
was the first time you guys did something that you were actually like, "Oh, I think we might be on to something here. Like feels good," you
yeah.
know?
Well, so after we built that first guitar, we graduated university, and then we got jobs. I was working at a theater company doing like administration, and I saw this thing come up where you could rent out. It was a shared workshop, and it was downtown, and I was working downtown, and we could rent out just like a little like 50 square foot booth, put our stuff in there, and then have access to bandsaw and table saw and the routers and all the stuff that you need. And so we immediately like rented this place out. I think it was like $200 a month between my brother and I. Had to have access to all these tools. It was really cool. It was just a really cool little like community of makers and stuff. People were just like making furniture or sculptures and stuff like that. So the first one, we built Telecasters because that's what you do. Out of like this old reclaimed pine that like was found in the they were digging up the harbor front for condos. And
Okay.
so they found all these old docks made out of like pine and other woods, Douglas fir and stuff. And so we made some Telecasters out of that. We didn't make the necks or anything, and that was really fun. And then we made this guitar.
Oh man,
So
that's cool. That's the first one.
That's
Kinda.
number one. Yeah. So
Dang.
kinda. It's like Western red cedar. Not we had heard of Spanish cedar being like a wood you could use, and we were like, "Whoa, what's the difference? Spanish cedar, red cedar." Like
Right.
this is stuff you cook a salmon on, and Spanish cedar is like mahogany. So whatever, it worked. It does have a mahogany neck. But yeah, we drew this thing out. We thought it was really funky and kind of futuristic looking and just cool. And we gave it this kind of crazy offset, and it's got the kind of like the startings of the headstock. So
Yeah, man.
Nick designed the headstock, and then I designed the body. Nick drew it out like maybe like in miniature, like this small,
Yeah.
and I blew it up, and I designed the body. We worked on it all together, but like the core concept was mine for the body. The core concept for the headstock was Nick's, and yeah, we put like these gold foils that we got from Bill Asher. He was the first one to reproduce these kind of gold foils. Now you see them everywhere. They're awesome. But um, yeah, we put these gold foils in it. We just like a wood bridge um, kind of thing.
That's
And
cool,
then
man.
I built the tailpiece myself on a friend's mill, and just like a little hand operated mill. And so we built this thing, and we were like, this is cool, but it's like too funky. It's a little too weird. So we were like, what if we just like tighten the waist up and make less offset and make the headstock bigger, not so tiny. We'd have something like really cool. And so then the one that we built right after that was this one. Everything dusty, the wood shop. So
Oh, dude, yeah.
pretty much very close, like obviously a lot of nuance differences and stuff to this versus what we make now, but pretty close to what we ended up doing this on the second try. So it's got the arch on the top and the back.
Oof.
It's yeah, it's got a mahogany core with a matching maple back. It's got our like the startings of our pickup ring, the starting of our pick guard. It's got the bigger headstock. We actually did it bigger since this as well. It's all bound, double bound with the heel binding. We were inspired by Collings to do like this crazy heel binding that we do on the signature model and ultralight at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the tailpiece again. So yeah, we kind of went from the early prototype to something that very much looks like what we do now, pretty like in almost one iteration. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we started building these. We built like maybe 10 the first year, all by hand. And they're all our guitars have an arch at the top and the back. Well, except for the new model, but all like the arcades have an arch on the top and the back. It's like a pretty to do it by hand is like not practical. It's great if you want to like make an arch top and charge $20,000 for it, but it'd be yeah pretty hard to do. We found out pretty quickly that we would need to like move over to CNC and carve those if we want to keep the arch, which we did.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you
so
guys
yeah, that's kind of that was 2014, 2013,
whew,
2015. So yeah, a
man,
long time ago, almost 10 years now.
that's crazy. I bet you that kind of flew by too, man. It's
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
when you got into doing the binding, talk to me a little bit about how much of a pain in the ass like binding is, because it seems like it is super meticulous. Because it's funny, man. I always joke with my wife, like I hate doing like little minutia stuff. And my
Yeah.
joke is that like I was always like, it's like it makes me want to vomit. Like I'm always like, oh, like when I have to do little things. But is like super meticulous and very like painstakingly hard to do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually don't do it myself. Like very early on, Nick and I split like our roles. Nick very much builds the guitars, and I do the finishing. Although now we have a team, so but like from the beginning, we kind of went in those directions. But so yeah, binding sucks.
Yeah.
And so to do it this way, like the way you do it by hand is you cut a rabbet in the top guitar, the back when you're binding, and then you lay in the binding strip with glue, and then you tape it, or you see Gibson like roping it, or like Linda Manzer, they rope it. But then you have to get rid of all the glue after, like scrape it all off or sand it all off. And we always hated that part of the process. Like standard binding that you'd get, like, just off the shelf is quite thin, like 60 or 70 thousandths of an inch. So, and then you got to sand it. And if you sand it a little too much, your binding gets thin. And it just like always drove me and Nick nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we like the like bolder binding. So we ended up doing was inlaying the binding, um, and then cutting the grout after, and that way you don't have to do
Ah.
any of that cleanup. Um, so yeah, I mean that was an evolution as well. Like when we started getting into doing the CNC stuff, we partnered with this guy Mark Kett, who is like just a genius, and he's amazing with programming and stuff. And so that was something that we worked on with him, was like our was creating the 3D models of our guitars and the manufacturing process on the CNC to do all that stuff, because they're, like I said, they're arched on the top and the back. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I grabbed an example. But there's no flat reference surface, so if you want to do something like a CNC, you need a flat reference surface, so the guitar stays put. If it's got an arch, it's just going to kind of rock there. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually build the guitar in a rectangle, like inside a body blank. We build it more like a sculpture. We kind of like move parts as we go, rather than like the way most guitars are made is you cut the body shape out first. We actually do that last. That's the last thing we do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, so because of that, we can inlay the binding and then cut the guitar out. That way we don't have to, futz with the binding as much. But then you
Yeah.
have to do like fretboard binding. So fretboard binding, you just got to do the old-fashioned way. It's like, I don't know
Yeah.
if you can catch that, see the purflings and stuff. Like all that has to be mitered by hand, and there's just
Yeah.
certain processes you just can't automate.
You guys do
So,
such a cool job with like finishes too, man. I want to talk about that, but
uh,
just
yeah,
really quickly, let me show everybody what you're talking about. So here we go. I just want to show them this picture. So if you guys look at the uh
yeah, there you go.
thumbnail, so this is what Tim's talking about, and that is so cool. And when you sent me that picture, I was like, oh man, that is so rad.
It's
Um
weird, right? Like that. So that's the neck is glued in, the binding's all installed, and then the last thing we do is cut the guitar out, which is really,
which
that's backwards.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
it the other
yeah.
way. But because
Man.
we've got to cut the guitar out, and it's got an arch on the top and the back. If you cut the guitar out, it's just gonna fly off, right? Or like if you cut the guitar out, there's no way to hold on to it. So we leave it in a square or in the
Mhm.
rectangle, the actual body blank, and that
Yeah.
um, and then it's got 4 pins in the top and that hold it in place as it's doing the final pass. We experimented with that, with like
That's
tabs and
crazy.
stuff, and so yeah, that's a process that we've been developing years. And that's mostly Nick and Mark that do those processes. I'm definitely involved in like the edge side of things, but they take it over the finish line with all those crazy CNC things.
Do you guys are you like constantly trying to innovate your process of how you're building these things?
For sure, yeah. We're always changing, always figure out a better way to do it, a faster way to do it, a cleaner way to do it. Um, like a more reliable. For us, it's like we want process reliability and quality. Um,
Hmm.
we're, you know, there's just little things that we can't overlook that bother us that we, can't compromise on. So we're always trying to figure out a better way to do it because our guitars are complicated. I think if you ever hold one, you kind of get a sense of the complication that goes into them. But like, it's like it's arched on the top and the back. It's got a top, a core, and a back, depending on the model. Um, it's got binding. It's got a, a set neck, but it's on the heel is like completely blended into the transition into the body. It's got the volute and like there's just like a lot going on. And so, in order to not make the guitar like I know they're not cheap, but in order to make the guitar not like $15,000, like double the price, we have to figure out all these kind of clever ways of manufacturing it a little bit faster than we
Yeah,
otherwise would.
totally. Does Jake have the ultralight? Is that what he has?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's made up. Body is made up of three pieces. So there's a top, a core, and a back. And
Hmm.
then the core is hollowed out with it's got a center block. Uh, and then we recently updated that with David Ryan Harris, and we did a spruce plug instead of a center block. So the center block
Mm,
is now spruce. We really liked that, and so that's on all the ultralights now. So Jake's got
man.
to get another one that's got the
Yeah.
update.
Yeah, I mean, they sound so great, man. Every person that I've heard playing them, they just sound like they have their own voice. How did you guys like settle on what kind of pickups you'd like to use in your guitars? Because so my buddy James from Rewind is here,
Yeah, love
and
Rewind.
I just got his pickups and put those in my Mockingbird, which are
Nice.
the tray that he calls them TAFs.
Sick. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
they
awesome. I
sound
love that
great.
collab.
Yeah. But how did you guys like, how do you figure out what you want to be dropping in? Or is it customer driven?
It's really customer driven. We're not, I mean, we've got our opinions, of course, and we like what we like. Um, there's so many amazing pickup winders these days, and so many people doing unique things, and so many people doing like really amazing like vintage accurate stuff, like Rewind is doing, and you know, it's it's always cool for me to get to try all these things. Like a customer will ask for all sorts of stuff, and like we've used Rewinds, they're awesome, amazing
Mhm.
pickups. I would totally encourage people to use one in our guitar, and uh, and so we just don't say no. We say yes. Love when
Yeah.
we get to try different stuff, you know. And we see, we have to have a set pickup because some people do want you to tell them what to use. We know what works with our guitars, our ears. Obviously, that's totally subjective. I've put pickups in guitars before and played it and been like, I don't know if this is like if these sound good. They're not for me. And then the person who buys the guitar comes in and plays it. I'm like, oh damn! Like I had the amp set wrong or whatever. Like it totally suits their style. So sometimes the customer knows exactly what they need. Other times we guide them and we'll recommend the pickup and have a standard kind of option. And actually, what we're working on now is our own like our own humbucker. So that's just
Nice.
going to go. We're working with Techno, who's a guy. He's in Peterborough, Ontario. It's like a 30-40 minute drive from where we are. So he's local. Makes great pickups. The Stagger Swagger is one of his his unique kind of pickups, and so we're working with him on a proprietary humbucker, like a PAF voiced humbucker. That'll be like a standard thing. But again, like we will say yes to anything. And so uh, yeah, with so many people doing awesome things, like
Yeah.
there's so much nuance to it, and so much character to add with just like um, the all these
Yeah.
subtle details that if you know what you want and there's somebody out there that does it, then absolutely that's the pickup you should. We're just we make the guitar, and so
Mhm.
the pickup is the microphone you want to put in it. totally up to you.
Yeah, it's cool, man. What's funny is like I had Peter Flynn on my show last week,
Yeah.
which I don't.
Oh,
You hip to that, dude?
yeah, a little bit like from your show.
He's like a wealth of knowledge, but he had the greatest quote. He's like, dude, you use a bunch of different pedals on your pedal board. Why not try swapping out pickups and seeing what you like and
Yeah,
what you don't like? And I was so
totally.
precious for so long about like not wanting to take things out of my guitar that was made by people who like put their blood, sweat, and tears into. But then I'm like, but that's not the thing that they put the blood, sweat, and tears into. It's the wood, it's the carve, it's all that stuff. I'm like, they're not gonna care if I take these pickups out and put new stuff in. As long as
Yeah,
I'm happy playing the instrument, right? So
for sure. And
that's what
we what we do is we make it super easy to swap the pickups out on our guitars. Um, so they're connected. The wiring harness and the pickups are tied together, and so you can snip or desolder that connection and replace your pickups without having to touch the wiring harness.
Oh,
So we
wow.
know people are gonna try different pickups. We're happy that they love the guitar and they want to try something new. Absolutely. Like I mean, this is like we hope it's going to be a guitar you want to keep forever. And if you don't want to have 20 guitars with 20 different sets of pickups, it makes sense to use the guitar you like playing as a you know as a way to try out different stuff. Like so, like nowadays, especially you could get like if you got a guitar with humbuckers, you can get humbuckers that are like P90 humbuckers with P90s, or Charlie Christians, or like tons of or like just different voicings, different magnets, different all this stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, we just make it super easy to swap the pickups. And there's like little threaded inserts so that when you take your pickup cup rings off, you don't have to screw it back into wood. You're screwing like a metal insert. Um, so you don't have to be afraid to kind of like screw up your guitar when you switch the
Dude,
pickups out or screw up the wiring harness.
that's awesome, man. See, you guys are it's like what you're doing is pushing the ball up the field, like I said, man. Um, so Steve's saying, excellent choice to have Tim on. I tried a pile of these at the shop and they were all exceptional in their own way. Amazing guitars.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Is that is that radar that you picked up the one that you guys posted today? That's like the new one
Yeah.
that's for sale. Can you pick that up? I
Yep.
just want to see because here's the thing. I don't know if there's many other companies that are doing that faded Pelham blue than you guys are. So talk to me
I love
about.
it.
Oh God, it's so good, dude. Like
It's my
this,
favorite.
that's my favorite color that you guys do. And then second to that, some of your gold tops with the checking that you guys do is like it's so good.
Nice.
So how do you guys you're the finishing guy? So are you the color guy?
I'm the
Okay.
color guy. Yeah.
So talk to
Everyone
talk to
has a
me about
say.
how you how you decide on what you guys wanted to do when you first started like spraying guitars. What were you like? Oh, I got all these ideas for colors, or were you like, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do straight up colors and not worry about that right away?
We did one color for like a couple years. We just did like this like very light amber sunburst for like years. And then one day I was in the booth and we just had a guitar that wasn't for anybody. We just made it and I was like, I'm just gonna paint it black and see what the guy like my brother thinks. And so I did and he was like, oh, sick. Um Actually, you know what? Before that, we made a guitar for Daniel Romano. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a Canadian singer-songwriter, wicked
No.
songwriter, awesome guitar player. Um, Total like Bob Dylan vibe, where he's just like a shapeshifter and does everything from like punk to folk, country, and definitely would recommend checking him out. He played
Okay.
our guitar for an entire year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but with a guy like him, that's a pretty decent run with one type of instrument or one type of even like style of music. And yeah, so he made this album called Modern Pressure, which is one of my all-time favorite albums. And he asked us to make him a white guitar that looked like it lived inside a cigarette. So that's where we got. That's why we have nicotine white. We called
Okay.
it nicotine white, and so we offer a color called nicotine white because of that. And that was actually the very first non-amber toned flame maple guitar we made. And then we spiraled after that. And now we do like every color imaginable. But yeah,
Yeah.
the faded Pelham blue is definitely a fan favorite and like a shop favorite. And it's actually we get the color. Some colors I'll mix myself. Other colors I buy from the same place that same people that make it for like Fender and Gibson. So you know you're like Pelham blue, but Pelham blue is like blue, like it's really blue.
Oh,
And
really?
so what I do is, yeah, it's a nice color for sure, but it's nothing like faded Pelham blue. Like it's night and day when you see them side by side. And so, but I start with that color, and then the reason it fades, and like on a vintage guitar, the reason it looks like this is that the top coat, the lacquer itself, yellows over time, and yellow and blue make green, and so you get this kind of that's some Pelham guitars are green and some guitars are, still blue because they just got
Right.
less UV exposure. But if you saw an old guitar, if you took the pick guard off, it would probably still be completely blue underneath. Um,
Oh, wow. That's
so,
cool.
so what I do is I shoot it blue, Pelham blue, and then I have an amber mixture that I make, yellow and a tiny bit of brown to make an amber, and then I spray that over top of it and I tint it until I get the color I want. So it's like way too geeky, and maybe I should just get rid of this option because it's like too much information for people and just analysis paralysis will set. But I can do like a light or a medium or a heavy or an extra heavy fade to the Pelham. So I can make it like look like totally green, like aquamarine almost, or I can make it look like it just had, it was a closet classic or any degree in between. So it's a really fun color because it's kind of it's always a little different. If you show an example of one that you like, even if it's like a different guitar company or a vintage example, then I can match it by just
Oh,
toning it.
wow. Man. And so how thick is that instrument, like body wise? Like what's how oh, that's yeah.
It's it's 1.5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I should know, but this is why I have my brother is usually kicking around, and I can ask him because it's his side of things.
Right.
It's 1.5. He's probably screaming right now. What the hell's wrong with and I don't have. Well, I have. There's always a ruler kicking around here somewhere. Let me just measure it. Um, yeah, 1.5.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I'm sure that's what an SG is. So it doesn't. It's not too thick, but it's not crazy thin either. Like it feels right, and it's got the arm, like this bevel is great for the feel. Basically, the idea behind this guitar was to make something that, like, again, like our whole vibe is to make a guitar that's like familiar but different.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Get that drink.
Kid is killing me.
Ugh.
Been sick like days. Um. So yeah, I'm already like going off on a tangent and talking about this guitar. I don't know if you want to hear about it, but
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that instrument, how is it with the strap on in terms of like balance? Like, cause
it's
that
great.
I had a Derek Trucks signature that I liked.
Cool.
It was a cool guitar. It was really nice. Um, and I felt like it was a good balance, but before that, to get me into the SG world, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get like an Epiphone SG because I was
Yeah.
just learning how to play slide. This was like 2013 maybe or 12. And then when I got to a point where I was like, okay, I feel like I can spend the money now to get a nicer instrument. But that Epiphone was like, bloop,
Hmm.
but Derek's guitar was nice and balanced. So it's
Right.
like I was curious about that in terms of how that sits on your body with a strap.
It's great.
But
I mean, that was part of the thing that we wanted to. We were definitely inspired by the SG. It was actually the main inspiration was a Hagstrom H2, which was
oh
like
yeah,
Hagstrom's kind of take on an SG. I guess they didn't want to get sued, but they wanted to make an SG. And that's kind of like being our vibe, even with the arcade, was to make something that kind of looked like it had been made in the same time zone as those other kind of iconic guitars, but maybe like in a country.
yeah,
And so it's like familiar but different. And so that's kind of we wanted to continue that theme with this guitar, so obviously like it's inspired by an SG, but actually it's kind of more inspired by a Hagstrom H2, but also it's inspired by like a Mustang.
Oh
So if you
yeah.
actually look at the silhouette, so we're gonna launch a different version. We kind of got two guitars out of one silhouette that's gonna have a round over, and it kind of looks like very Mustang when you get rid of the chamfer. So it's gonna be a bit of
Oh,
a shapeshifter.
okay. Okay.
Um,
What pickups are in that
so
guitar?
this has throwbacks,
Oh,
SLE
nice.
101s, yeah,
Cool.
and yeah, yeah, so basically, as you can see, it's like more offset than an SG. So the strap is closer to the 12th fret, so it feels like you're sitting, or when it's hanging off a strap, it feels like you're playing more of a Fender style guitar. Same with the whole like waist. Like if you look at an SG, the waist is like way back here, so that also contributes to the neck dive, and the neck feels kind of like long. You can get used to anything, right? But that's kind of the complaint that most people have when they're not familiar with playing an SG.
Yeah.
And so this guitar doesn't feel like that. Like you can kind of get, like you can look like you're playing an SG, but feel like you're playing a Fender.
What's the scale length on that one?
This one is 25-inch, but the new ones are all going to be 24 and 3/4. That
Okay.
was the, but 25 is a great scale length too. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the split
And
inlays
then,
too, man. I'm a big fan
oh
of split
yeah,
inlays. They're so cool.
we use them a lot. I mean, I love the vintage inlays. Like we do small blocks, large blocks, and splits a lot, and then dots as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the splits are kind of it jazzes the guitar up in a nice way. Like, it looks
Yeah.
badass.
It makes you feel like you're BB King in a way too. It's like there's like this blues kind of element, blues rock element almost too. It's like a mix between
Yeah,
like Angus and BB. Like it's how it makes me feel when I see that
yeah.
guitar. But
I grew up playing a Strat, so like our guitars always had the silhouette of like they feel like you're like more like a Fender, like how they sit, in my opinion. Um, like in like when you put them side by side, like certain things line up in the same way. Um,
mm,
but because I grew up playing a Strat and I'm comfortable with those guitars, Fenders in general. It was a trip to play the larger instruments at the beginning, but now it's like I just love them. Like they look cool, and you wouldn't even know that they're there, like playing them. So
right, man.
it's a great option.
And like I have never put my hands on one of your guitars, but like what's the neck profile like on between like if we're talking like your different models, but like between the arcade and between this, like do you guys have chunkier necks or does it like what's the profile?
We do like so we have a classic medium C, which is 8.6 to 9.4. So it's not like crazy big or crazy small. Like it's a nice medium. It's different for everybody. Like every brand is subjective. Like if we're talking to like I don't know Ibanez, a medium for them would be like two for us.
Right.
But so it's a bit of perspective and um, a medium D is it's if those numbers mean nothing to you, it's a nice like middle ground. And what we do is it's not a super thin neck, but what we take a little, it's a C shape, but we take a little bit more off the shoulders to give it just like the slightest hint of a V. And that
Mm,
makes it not, so it doesn't feel boxy. 'Cause I feel like
okay.
that's the main thing. If your neck feels boxy, it doesn't matter how thick or thin it is, it just feels chunky in a bad way. So, and we give it a nice like the fretboard edge has a nice roll to it, and so the whole thing just feels like nice and smooth and organic. But then we do a slim version of it as well, for like a thinner neck, and we also do a 57V, which is based off like the Fender V.
Hmm.
Um, Again, not a crazy V by any means, but like definitely notice that it's a V. And then we do a 59 inspired neck and a fat 58, so like a chunky neck. And I think
Right.
the biggest neck we ever did was 1 inch to 1.1 inch. It was a
Mm,
beast.
yeah.
But
That's a little bit
it was
baseball
awesome.
batty. Yeah.
Yeah, it was chunky. It was chunky,
Yeah.
but it's still out there and it did sound great. So,
Yeah. Man,
yeah,
there's something about it too, like the you know, something that's more ergonomic in your hand. It's like I've heard so many builders talk about that, like Matt from Yule talking about like your hand is not shaped like a C or not shaped like a V. It's like we're trying to get it to be like the shape of a hand, and that's kind of sounds like what you guys are doing too. Is like making it more ergonomic than just the
Yeah,
standard.
it's a
You know.
it it's a much more dynamic shape than just like um, a drawing on a piece of paper. There's a lot more to it, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I find the medium C is like super comfortable. But again, we offer like a variety of neck shapes just to kind of if you have a guitar that you really like, you can find a neck shape from us that you'll probably feel really at home with.
Yeah. It looks like your brother did jump in and say, "Hey, the radar is 1.5."
Yeah,
So, um, man, yeah, I mean, it's just like you guys are doing such cool things, man. I love seeing, especially when you start seeing people pop up like David Ryan Harris, and he's got one of your beautiful instruments, and it's like that's gotta feel pretty cool, man. When you're like, oh,
yeah,
like this is just, you know what I mean? Like it. Think about that, and then push rewind and go back to that little 50 square foot room that you guys were renting. You know what I mean? It's just so
oh
freaking
yeah.
cool, dude. I can't
It
even
feels like we've come
imagine.
come a long way. David's is a cool one because he's just like an epic guitar player and singer and musician, and then just like
Mhm.
such a nice guy too. So that was a really fun one, and seeing him do the premier guitar rig then was awesome too. So
Yeah,
um,
it's so great, dude. It's so awesome. And it's like it's funny because I don't know you guys. I've only seen the guitars on Instagram and on your website and stuff when I'm like perusing and looking at things. But it's like it makes me happy for people when there things like that are happening for them, because it's like you're obviously making a wonderful product, and you're obviously putting all of your passion. Both of you guys are putting from the beginning to now, like you're always trying to grow and make things that you feel like musicians can use because they're tools, right? Like
for
we
sure,
want to be able to be inspired by these instruments, and the gear game that everybody gets sucked into, and everyone always asks me about stuff. Like I get DMs all the time, like, dude, just whatever makes you happy, whatever keeps the guitar in your lap.
yeah,
If it's
absolutely,
if it's a pedal, if it's just the guitar, if it's a new pick that you're using, like whatever keeps the guitar in your lap and brings you joy, is that's what matters, man. Don't give a damn
yeah,
about what everybody else is saying. Like just enjoy what you've got going on. And I feel like that's what you guys are doing, and then you're providing that joy too to people. So it's all like full circle, man. It's super cool.
yeah. It's a lot of fun, and it's cool to make something for somebody that is beyond just like an object. Like it's an instrument. It's a lot of people. It's the tool of their trade, and so that's really inspiring to for us. Like to know that they're out there using it every single day, and that it's got to be reliable as well. And that you look at it like a couple of years later, like and it's like it's held up nicely and all that. Or you bring one comes back and it's got the war scars in it, and that's really fun too.
Right.
So
Well, and then these instruments are like your grandfather's violin to people. You know what I mean? Like
I hope
some of
so.
this.
Yeah, they're gonna be hopefully heirlooms to people one day because they're built really like tanks. Like we've done a lot to make them super robust. Like even the ultralight has some tricks up its sleeve to make the body like smash resistant. um,
Don't send one to Mike
and
McCready, or he might try it out.
yeah, but we just updated like we built our necks too to make them um, you know, stronger and more robust. I don't know if you saw that like video we did. We like build our neck. I have a example, but we use like a V joint headstock now.
Yeah, I did see
We've
that.
always
Yeah.
had, yeah, we've always had the volute. That's just been something that we've always done because it's a cool way of transferring like a pair like a symmetrical shape into an asymmetrical shape. But now we live in two pieces, and so this thing like slides in, and it makes the neck way stronger because you don't have the grain run out that is the weak point where you see most headstocks snap. And also we get way better wind yield. So yeah, we're always kind of trying to make the guitar um, update the guitar. We don't have like we're making our version of the Les Paul, so we've got a little bit more kind of creative license.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Man,
that's always fun too.
just keep doing it, man. Like you guys are just it's so cool. Like everything you guys got going on is super hip and one day, dude, it's funny because I was like just talking about, I think to my wife, she's like, "Who's on your show this week?" And I was telling her, and I was like, "I'm gonna have to buy one of these at some point." And she's like, what?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"Well,
but
I just got because I just got that Josh Williams last year, and that was I had to sell
nice.
get three guitars to get that guitar.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Um,
great. Though.
but I love, and it's funny because James is kind of now from Rewind has kind of like turned me into a humbucking loving dude, where my whole
Nice.
life I've been a Strat and Telly player, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's something magical about and his
Oh yeah.
pickups in this instrument is just there's these harmonics and these overtones that make everything like more sweet. I don't know what it is, dude. Just I'm kind of on the dark side now, I think.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think we
But
all kind of like our first experience was like a phone, like whatever humbucker in it, and you're like, eh. Whereas a single coil, like if you play like an American Strat that just has like a regular single coil in it, there's a bit more magic to that pickup compared to like a junk P90, or I'm sorry, not P90, a junk like humbucker. So
mhm,
I feel like it's easier to at the beginning to love a single coil because they just
that's
got a
true.
little bit more luxurious to them. But then when you get a really nice humbucker, there's like it's you
Yeah,
start to
lights
fall in
out.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, Tim, anything else before we do our lightning round get down here? Anything else that you want to promote? Anything coming up that we should be aware of for Frank Brothers?
Uh, oof. Well, we've got our own pickup coming out soon that we're going to be launching. That's really exciting. It's the prototype sounds amazing. We're really excited about that. Yeah, we've got the radar model. If you haven't checked that out, that's our model. We haven't released a new model in since we started almost 10 years ago. A new silhouette. We've done iterations of our other silhouette. There's 4 versions of them, but really excited about that. We're going to be launching a round over version of it. So if you're not into the chamfer, the SG kind of vibe, this is going to be way more Fendery kind of way. And it's going to have the like a master ball, master tone kind of control setup rather than the 4-pot. Yeah, we got lots coming in the pipeline. So our main way to find out about us is on Instagram. Um, so Frank_Brothers. So yeah, stay tuned on that. Um,
Yeah, man.
so yeah,
Cool.
lots in the pipeline.
Awesome.
That's my
BV,
pitch.
thank you for moderating the chat, BV, and popping this stuff in here. Everybody go check out their guitars are beautiful. The colors, the cuts. It's just like an original guitar company that's doing real cool stuff for us players. So all right,
Nice.
Tim, let's do this lightning round get down. So I'm gonna ask you 10 rapid fire questions and you can burn right
Okay.
through them if you want. Or if you want to, you can explain your answers. But before we do that, I've been telling dad jokes before we do that. So I got a good dad
Okay.
joke for
We're
you right
talking to
now.
the right guy. Nice.
Yes, you are. What did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on the ant hill?
You got me.
Dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant.
That's good.
That was a pretty good one. All right, here we go. So I got a metronome on at 112 BPM for some suspense. First question is always the same. Lennon or McCartney?
McCartney.
For snacks, salty or sweet?
Salty.
On the playground as a kid, on the swings or on the slide?
Swings for sure.
Hollow body or solid body?
Solid body.
All right, superpower, teleportation or flight?
Teleportation.
Okay. Snowstorm or thunderstorm?
Thunderstorm.
Here's a Canadian one for you. Maybe this will work, maybe it won't. I Mother Earth or Our Lady Peace?
Uh Lady Peace. That's kind of more my era, I guess.
Dude, have you heard? Have you ever listened to I Mother Earth's Scenery and Fish?
I don't know. I don't think
Dude,
so. Maybe on the radio, Canadian radio.
check that album out, man. It's a rockin' record, but it's like that band at that point was kind of jamming a bunch in the tunes. So it's like there's a
Okay.
lot of stretch sections and stuff. It's really good. Maple or rosewood fingerboard?
Rosewood, but Macassar Ebony. Check it out.
Oh, okay.
That's
All right.
yeah.
Is that a
Kind
soft?
of
Is
a middle
ebony
ground.
a softer wood than rosewood, or is it harder?
No, it's a bit harder. Like, so most people think of ebony as freaking ebony, like the jet black stuff you'd find on like a Les Paul custom or like a violin. Um, and then Macassar's a little bit softer, but it's not quite as brittle as and bright as African ebony. But it's got a little bit more. It's not spongy as Indian rosewood. It's a little harder. It holds a fret really nicely. It's beautiful looking. It's got a nice snap to it. It's by far our favorite replica.
Okay. Okay. Movie theater or stream at home?
Stream at home.
Me too. Me too. All right. Here's the last one, Tim. Sometimes this is the easiest. Sometimes it's the hardest. If you could take one album and erase it from your memory, so like you've never heard it before, just so you could go back and listen to it for the first time again, what album would that be?
You know what? Probably "Working Man's Dead" by the Grateful Dead, because it
Oh,
was
okay.
like it just like it took everything and kind of smushed it together for me, like folk and rock and songwriting and it just like it's like a smell, like it kind of to me like it just kind of brings me back to a place when I hear that album, and just nostalgic. So if I could hear that album like from zero again, that'd be interesting. If I would
Nice.
feel the same way.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, congratulations. You made it to the other side of the lightning round get down. Tim, dude, this was such a pleasure to talk to you, my man. Like, I really appreciate you taking the time, especially since you don't feel that great. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks. I really appreciate it. And I love the dad joke. My brother is screaming at me right now because he's got like every dad joke imaginable. But I can't remember any of them right now. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on and for doing this. I love the show, and so I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Everybody, thanks for stopping in. This will live in perpetuity on the website, obviously on YouTube. So go back and watch this, and make sure you check out Frank Brothers Guitars. They're absolutely gorgeous instruments. I've heard nothing. Hopefully, I'm going to get to play Jake's because I'm going to sound check Sunday
Yeah,
to hang
nice.
out. So hopefully, he'll have his and I can play it. But I've heard nothing but amazing things about those instruments. So if you are a guitar player, you probably are because you're watching this channel. Please play one of those instruments and check them out. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.